Hey everybody, welcome. It is the RambleCast. This is February 5th, 2025, and I'm your host, Cody Toombs. With me I have Corbin Davenport.
Hello.
And oh boy. Oh boy.
The the horrors persist, but so do we. We're here to bring you fun news. I don't know anymore.
No,
We're not going to
we're
talk
here.
about
We're actually here to bring you terrible news, but we're going to make fun
right,
of it.
right.
And
We're not talking about the collapse
of society.
directly. We're just, I think we all need some distraction right now. We need to be distracted by the normal amount of stupid tech stuff. So that's what we're gonna do. So first
Pretty
stupid
much.
tech thing is Sonos. So first thing is the Verge published a report. I believe this is their original reporting. They're not reblocking anyone.
Well, they do borrow a few
Talk.
details from Mark Gurman, but yeah, this
Okay.
is this is
Yeah.
mostly their own stuff.
Yeah. So Sonos is supposedly working on a new streaming player. I shouldn't. Maybe new is not the right word because they've never done that to my knowledge. Sonos has done a lot of smart speakers and sound bars and similar equipment, but I don't believe they've done a
Correct.
actual like Chromecast Fire TV stick kind of deal.
Well, it's I think more accurate to say that they've never done anything that even involves video before. Um, this is
Hmm.
truly a first. Uh, you know, as I say that, I suspect they may have done sound bars that could have had HDMI pass through, but
Right.
that's the lowest order thing you could possibly do that counts as video. Nobody would actually
Right.
count that as legitimate. Um, so yeah, this is definitely a first for Sonos. It's stepping outside of their wheelhouse by a lot, to say the very least. Because video, as it turns out, little secret, it's actually kind of a hard thing to do well. Um, Now, granted, before we get into any of the details, I suspect they're probably going to use a borrowed, or not borrowed, but they're probably going to use, let's say, a Qualcomm chip or something like that, where a lot of the video stuff is probably already functioning. And then they just really have to add a few other components, wire it all up, and it'll all kind of just work. So this isn't necessarily the craziest, most difficult thing, but it could also become troublesome. Uh, but
Yeah.
getting back to kind of the order of things here. This is Sonos. This is also Sonos's first product, presumably, of 2025. Once they announce it, at least. And given that rumors suggest they don't have anything else in the pipeline, it really is looking like their first actual 2025 product, which means there's a lot of expectation on it after they completely bungled their headphones last year. Or was it last year or the year before? Where the app,
It was. Yeah, it was the app. I believe that was last year.
yeah,
Um,
the headphones were just generally overpriced headphones that were meh, whatever.
right.
Like they're nice, but they're overpriced. But the app that you had to use with them was famously horrendous. Which leads someone to ask the basic question: did they hire an actual developer, or was this like a college student they could pay nothing to?
Yeah, I've never used any Sonos stuff, so I don't have an opinion there. But um, the okay, so the streaming player, the Verge says it could cost between $200 and $400, which is a lot for that category. I'll get back to that. I have a take. Um,
We both do.
they say it's well, just the article here says, I've seen images of the upcoming product, which is deep into development, and it's about as nondescript as streaming hardware gets. Viewed from the top, the device is a flattened black square and slightly thicker than a deck of trading cards. It is Android based. Um, it has what sounds like a custom interface, which is interesting because Google doesn't let you do that with Google TV. So are they building their own?
If you hit the sentence at the end of that paragraph, it says sources familiar with the Pinewood tell me it is a quote beautiful interface, despite the software being developed in partnership with a digital ads firm. I really feel the need to emphasize that last part.
Okay.
So
this it's Android based,
yes,
but probably not Google TV because
It's
Google TV
not.
doesn't let you.
Yeah.
They you don't get to have a custom launcher anymore. Sorry, that cuts into Google's marketing. So
Yeah. So being Android based, that it, to me reemphasizes the notion that this is almost certainly going to be using, I'm guessing, a Snapdragon processor. Just
right,
because
reference platform something.
Yeah, and you know they obviously they could be picking up a processor from somebody else. It's not like there aren't plenty of others that can handle video. And this, I'll cut to the chase on this. Nothing about this sounds like it's going to be powerful enough to be a gaming device. So it's not necessarily going to try to take on the Shield in terms of like performance. It's just trying to do good video, which is, let's be honest, anyone who's even seen like a low end smartphone that they like you could get for free on any streaming or on any cell plan, any of those 100% they could handle 4K video. Like they have the power to do that. It's a low bar, so they don't have to use anything too powerful. And since it's Android, the drivers are already done. That most of the stuff they can kind of just cherry pick what they need from AOSP, add in some of their own extra sauce, and then the interface is built by this digital ads firm, which actually didn't look up who that was. But go ahead, I'll let you say the next bit.
Well, the Verge mentions that this will also function as an HDMI switch, so it will supposedly have several HDMI ports with pass-through. So in that respect, it's kind of like not just an HDMI switch, but almost more like the original Xbox One, back when Microsoft was trying to position it as like a media thing, like an all-in-one media box. You could plug in other devices into it. And of course, this would presumably be really cool for people who have bought into the Sonos ecosystem, because then they can have like their streaming device like fully integrated with all any speakers they have around. They have like a sound bar already. Basically just solving a lot of potential issues for that.
And so far that is pretty much, I mean, it's not like Sonos has announced this yet, so just going off of what we know, it sounds like the integration with their speakers is probably their big key selling point.
Yeah, I would expect so. And they also supposedly has gigabit Ethernet and Wi-Fi 7. So I will say my take here is, I think there is a market for this that exists outside of people who are knee deep in the Sonos ecosystem, because there are no high-end Android based streamers right now. There's the Shield, which is like a decade old now.
Well, the original is. The newer ones are 3 years old.
Okay. So there's the Shield, and then everything else is very low end. The new Google TV is better. Like it has better internal hardware. But most of the other options are like not a lot of storage, not a lot of RAM, not the latest Wi-Fi. If it has wired internet, like it usually needs an adapter because it's just a little dongle thing. Um, so I think like if Sonos places cards right, this could be an option like that, which I think would be interesting. And they mentioned that the estimated price is very high. I would. The one thing here is Apple is in this market. They have the
Mm-hmm.
Apple TV, which I think is 200,
You can get one. I think it's 150 for the lowest cost.
Okay.
Um,
Apple TV 4K. If I click buy, what is it? 129. Oh,
oh,
okay.
hey.
And there's one with, oh, that's the base model with 64 gigs of storage, and then there is a Wi-Fi plus Ethernet with 128 gigs of storage for 150. That's pretty
And
good.
I could be mistaken, but I think the Ethernet goes through their power
Yeah,
cable.
I would
Don't think it's
expect
built
so.
in. Which
Yeah.
good. That's
Yeah,
actually better, I think.
yeah. Normal people don't have an Ethernet line like running up to where the streaming box is. It's gonna be like somewhere down the wall.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay, so also let's see. The Nvidia Shield. But by the way, there are two models of Nvidia of the current Shield TV. One of them is basically a weird little tube thing. That is okay, and I've got these going up on screen. I'll also link them in chat so Corbin can look without going to my stream. So the tube thing is 150 and the TV Pro is 200. And bear in mind, these have Tegra X1 chips in them. The Pro model has ports and I think more RAM and maybe a couple of other perks. I'm not going to go digging through to find all the details. And
oh yeah, there's a diagram on the page. It has two USB 3.0, HDMI 2, and gigabit Ethernet all on the back.
yeah,
So that's
so
good.
I'm going to call out the one deficiency that these have in a moment, but in the meantime, I will say, look, right now I am still using the OG Shield, which, as of this year, whenever it came out, when it did, as of this year, it will make it a 10-year-old device, and currently, I just got a notification on the home screen that there is an update for it. This is now a 10-year-old device, or close to 10-year-old, that is still getting updates. Look, people can say what they want, but Nvidia proved that their hardware is worth buying just for the support alone. Look, fact of the matter is, I don't think, and I'm just going to come out and say it, I don't think Sonos is going to be around in 10 years. So I don't think you should be counting on their support lasting 10 years. But that's a separate issue.
And this is a box that I noticed on the page. It's still Android 11. I don't know at what point will that be an issue, but I don't know. But it is Android 11. That's just Android TV with the full Google Play Store. So Sonos has to, if it's building its own OS platform, whatever, it has to convince Disney and YouTube and Netflix and everyone else to publish their apps on their thing, even if they're still the same Android apps. It's in a different ecosystem, unless they get like
there's
Amazon.
There's more about this, specifically about that, which The Verge says one thing and then I think unintentionally admits that thing is probably not real. So the next paragraph after where you left off goes on to say, Sonos plans to combine content from numerous platforms, including Netflix, Max, and Disney Plus, under a single unified software experience. Universal search across streaming accounts will be supported. Okay, now first off, we've heard this before. This is the same thing Apple tried to do. It's the same thing Google tried to do. Fun fact, Roku actually kind of tried doing this
Yeah,
in.
Roku has this too.
Yeah, everyone tried this. And here's the problem: Netflix, Max, Disney Plus, Amazon, and everyone else ultimately said, yeah, no, we really want people in our apps. We want them in our apps. We do not want we don't want to hand this, we don't want people streaming through some unified interface, because then we don't control it. So no, it's neat that you asked, but we're just not going to do it. And I'm going to be honest, I don't think Sonos is the one who's going to convince them otherwise. Look, if Apple couldn't succeed at that, Sonos sure as hell isn't. That's just not happening. So, this goes on to say, let's see, skip down to, where was this? Okay, it is in the same paragraph. Sonos voice control will be integrated, and Pinewood will also ship with a physical remote control that includes shortcuts for popular streaming apps. Okay, so there's going to be a unified interface, but anytime you can just go to the streaming apps themselves. All right, so that just means it's going to be streaming apps, and this unified interface is just a search that does nothing else.
Well, also I'd say like the part where I said like the price point could make sense if it is like a premium high end thing. I think it's hard to have a super high end premium thing and also the remote has a Netflix button that you can't remove. Like, this is the thing that Roku does to make their sticks like $20 is they do bidding wars for all the streaming services to put their button on the remotes. Like, it's like you can buy the same Roku stick at one point, and then 6 months later buy the same one and the buttons are different. Because it's just like whoever is highest bidder. And like, I get it there because the stick is $20 and that's how they subsidize it, whatever. But like, if I'm paying $400 for what is supposed to be like premium AV equipment, that's a little silly. That's getting silly. And we also don't know how the software will work. Like, is it going to be more or less annoying than everything Amazon and Google have tried with their TV platforms over the last couple of years? That worries me. I think there's an argument for this costs a lot, but it works flawlessly with all your Sonos crap, and also it's super fast and avoids a lot of the same issues that maybe other Android boxes have. I don't know if you can do that and also have like all the revenue streams of Roku. I don't know if you can gel those two things. Maybe if maybe if the Sonos people are just really desperate, that can work. But I feel like that's not a growth strategy.
Yeah. So, but I would add more to that, but frankly, I agree with every word of it. So the one place where I will fully acknowledge that Sonos is beating the Shield is the HDMI pass-through part. Because having multiple HDMI inputs that each can be a pass-through, so you could feed your gaming consoles, in theory, maybe a different streaming box, or I guess cable or DVD. Well, cable usually doesn't come in on HDMI, but let's say it did. I guess the cable box itself would. At whatever thing you have that's a external source, sure, great. You can funnel that through this device. The Shield doesn't do that, but that is a thing that soundbars have done for years, and honestly, a lot of them do it pretty well. Sometimes there are some weird HDMI CEC issues with soundbars, so there's always that. But generally, I've seen a lot of soundbars do this pretty effectively and without much trouble. So I'm not convinced that's really an issue. And I don't see why anyone would necessarily want to pay for their streaming box to have this. Not to say that I wouldn't want it. I certainly would. Yeah, I don't actually have that many external inputs that where it would matter, but I could see
Right?
this. Like, I don't think that
When
this is something that's worth paying an extra, say, $200 for.
Right. It depends on what they do with the software because when Microsoft tried this with the Xbox One, their pitch was like you plug your cable box into your Xbox and then you can have like a central interface and voice control for like everything media related, which like I think kind of made sense at the time, but no one ended up using that, so they removed it in later Xboxes. Um, if in Sonos case, I guess just the fact that it exists and would sync sound properly with all the other Sonos stuff might be the only selling point that matters. I will say also, that is a potentially incredible data mining opportunity for them.
Mm-hmm.
If we're getting back to the partnership with ad companies, being able to basically just like watch what you're doing even when you're not using the Sonos is very valuable. One experience I had with this recently was I took some Blu-ray movies with me to my family's house when I went over for Christmas, to see if anyone wanted to watch them. And I put in one movie and I started watching it. And this is on a Roku, like a smart TV with Roku built in. And it's just a Blu-ray player through the TV's HDMI port. And about like 5 minutes into the movie, or it wasn't even 5 minutes, it might have been like 1 minute, like the titles were still going. There's a little notification in the corner that says like, do you want to watch this movie on a streaming service? It was like, oh, okay, cool. You content detected the movie I'm watching and asked me if I want to watch it, but with ads in between. That's cool.
Yeah, that's
Um,
pretty gross.
bold proposition. I didn't know that was a thing on Roku, so that's of course a setting I had to turn off afterwards. But pretty gross, and that's something Sonos could definitely do if they wanted to with this setup. So we'll
Yeah.
see what happens there.
And talk about another reason I will never touch Roku. Not to say that other companies aren't doing or going to eventually do this, but Roku seems more willing to be awful.
I don't know. I think it's like everyone, like everything in this product category is awful. Like the best you can do is like get a smart TV and like never let it connect to the internet ever. Never give it your Wi-Fi password. And then connect some streaming stick that is isolated by virtue of it just being an input device or output device, I guess.
Yeah.
But even then, then you get the annoying things that are like ads or just ads on the home screen and stuff. So this is a race to the bottom where we've all lost, basically.
Yeah, and what stands out to me
except
is
Apple. The Apple TV's still kind of in the corner. Like, yeah, maybe the interface isn't that good, but you know what? It is not doing any of this.
Yeah, the thing that stands out to me here though is Roku is, or sorry, not Roku. Sonos. From everything we're seeing right here, like again, the product hasn't even been announced, and we can already see very on the surface this is obviously already not just a race to the bottom product, but it's basically trying to be the worst product in the selection while also being the most expensive. Like that's bold. That's only Sonos would be this insane to do something so bad. So yeah, I truly I cannot fathom why this would be a product. So going back, I think we both said we wanted to come back to these aspects of it. One, just to briefly comment on this, one of the few things I think I actually almost want to say is a good thing is their physical design. If it's just a flattened black square that's a little thicker than a deck of trading cards, like, okay, I'm fine with that. Yes, please make things that are innocuous that you're not going to notice that you can stick on the back of a TV. That part I'm okay with.
And not that it should be this form factor if it's going to have multiple HDMI ports, but that seems like it excludes the possibility of it just being a little dongle you can hide behind your TV.
Right.
But you wouldn't want that with 4 HDMI cables coming out of it. That you're going to snap off your TV's USB connector doing that.
Right. So yeah, you don't necessarily want to go too crazy with that, but if it's something that you could attach with well, if you could somehow mount it on the back of the TV and just have the cables hanging off, yeah, that's fine. Or just hide it somewhere down by the floor and just run a long HDMI cable up to the TV. That's good too. We're happy with any of these solutions. But again, you said, and we've kind of addressed this a few times, but costing between 200 and 400. I mean, literally 200 being the baseline is higher than any of the competitors, even the expensive versions of the competitors. And the fact that they could theoretically go to double that while also selling the remote with named buttons, so they're, I'm sure, taking bids on that. They would have an interface built by an ad agency that is absolutely going to be stealing as much data as they can and showing ads. Probably more aggressively than, I'm guessing more aggressively than Google does. I'm not sure it would be more aggressive than Amazon. Because look, it's been ages since I have ever fired up a Fire TV. But the only one I've ever had was the original generation. And I didn't even use it for very long. But I've heard I've heard stories that Fire TV is very ad heavy.
Yeah, it would be very difficult to beat Amazon there. And I think if you got close to that, anything that costs $400, there would be riots in the streets.
Right, but to be fair, you're saying it'd be hard to beat Amazon with this. Well, bear in mind, this is an ad agency. By the way, the name of the ad agency is The Trade Desk, which I was kind of looking around and I didn't really see a whole lot of detail about like who they've worked with or really anything. Their website is kind of just vague on everything. But they did list a bunch of partners, which includes basically all the major TV networks, all the major sport companies, all the major streaming or like game, not game, but like TV and video streaming services. So think TikTok, Spotify, Pandora. And it seems like they're listing the companies that advertise through them, which, okay, that's nice, but these companies advertise through everybody, so I'm not sure that's a big selling point.
Well, one thing that has been very interesting to me over the past couple of years is I wonder how much Google has lost in being so aggressive with Google TV. Because, before Google started like enforcing their launcher and their, promotional stuff on everyone who wanted to ship Android TV / Google TV with the Play Store. Again, like you can still get the open part of Android without their involvement, which is what Sonos is doing. And because of that, like a lot of stuff was Android TV based, like even like satellite TV companies were selling Android TV boxes. TiVo made one. But after that switch, I've seen a lot of companies move away from Android TV, Google TV. Samsung had Tizen. They started third-party licensing Tizen. I don't know if anyone's taken them up on that because Tizen's not very good, but it is the thing they are trying to do. LG, I believe, is doing the same thing with TV WebOS. Again, I don't know if anyone has taken them up on that. I haven't looked. WebOS is, I think, worse.
I have they tried licensing that? Admittedly, I don't follow the news, but I was under the impression that they just intended to use it for themselves and didn't care about anyone trying to get anyone else to use it.
It was 2021. I put this
okay.
in the YouTube chat. But okay, cool. As I click the YouTube link, what is Firefox doing? It thinks this window's not inactive, but yeah, I just haven't seen like all of the YouTube messages for the last I don't know how long, so that's cool. I need to reopen this window. But yeah, like WebOS is licensed, Tizen is licensed. TiVo's parent company built their own Android TV spin, and their like actual marketing for it was like it's Android with like a lot of the big apps, but TV makers can go hog wild with customizing it. So there's definitely been an industry shift there. I don't know how extensive it is necessarily, but I think it has been interesting, and I do wonder, did Google give up like almost total control of anything smart that needs to be hooked up to a TV because of this?
Not gonna lie, I'm not quite sure what you're getting at.
Well, I mean, like before they started, like before Google TV, there was a lot of boxes of smart TVs with Android TV. And now it seems like there's a lot less of that. And we're getting a lot more stories of companies like Sonos just building a different thing that is not connected to Google in any way. But, you know, maybe would have just been Android TV. If Google had allowed customization. And then, you know, I again, I don't really know if it matters for Google, because like they're not getting 30% of free apps you download through the Play Store. So
yeah, and
I don't know how much it matters to them.
Well, strictly speaking, they were getting a good chunk if people were subscribing through those apps, but I think if I think they wanted to make Google TV profitable rather than just making it effectively a free thing. So, you know, without being able to place ads, obviously they were sort of giving up too much. And yeah, I don't know if they're necessarily benefiting or losing from doing this. That's probably a little bit more of a complicated thing. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I haven't seen as much of a movement away from Android TV or Google TV as you've seen, or I haven't noticed it. But I feel like every time I hear about somebody getting any product, it's still always either a Fire TV, an Apple TV, or a Google TV device that is either made by Google, Walmart, or Nvidia, or Sony, if it's just one of their TVs. Because I think Sony's still just full Google TV.
I believe so.
And I'm assuming there are a few other companies that are full Google TV. I just don't know who they are. And
I want to say I know I think there's like TCL. TCL is one of those companies that makes like TVs, but they have like an identical model that's like Roku and something else. I believe TCL is still like mostly in the Roku camp.
Yeah, I'd believe that. The thing is, or rather, I guess I just haven't seen any notable products on the market that are trying to do their own thing. With the exception of like projectors, where most of the projectors already weren't Google TV. They just all the weird Chinese projectors that they had to do their own thing because, you know, it's
Right.
their business model to do whatever differently. Um, but yeah, I also just don't watch the space that closely, I guess.
Yeah, that's just like an industry thing I've noticed. But you know, in the end, doesn't really matter because the Netflix app is identical on almost every TV.
As is the Plex app.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
So yeah, that's we got the I keep saying Roku. We got the Sonos box. We'll see what happens there. Um, Again, I'm not in the Sonos ecosystem at all, so I don't really care all that much. Um,
Neither am I. Um, at this stage, the thing about Sonos that interests me, or I feel like commenting on, is really just it really just goes down to the simple. At this stage, I just dislike the company. Because the company has been the most they've possibly been the best example of a bad faith partner that has ever existed. Anyone who's ever partnered with them, and you know, obviously Google got all the headlines, but if you go digging around, almost any company that has ever partnered with Sonos has just come away completely regretting it because Sonos has just broken contracts left and right. They violated so many different deals, and they just do it all. They always do it in bad faith. So, you know, I just have absolutely zero sympathies for this company. That being said, I do at least sympathize with its employees, which, not really going to make the story out of this, but coincidentally, just before the news of this streaming box came out, they announced that they were laying off 200 employees, which the company, I don't know how many they have still, but that's a lot. Sonos is not a big company. Dropping 200
yeah,
employees is kind of a big slash of their workforce.
in the Verge notes in this article that they had 100 other people go in August.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's Sonos necessarily doing this more than like I'm gonna be really annoying here, and I'm gonna say like I think there's a little bit of a psyop here going on with the Sonos app, where I think it is fair that like again I'm not in the Sonos ecosystem. I'm just going off what I've heard from people with Sonos crap. The app update was not good. It made a lot of people not like all the speakers they bought, whatever. I'm positive that had a detrimental effect on their business to some extent. I'm not doubting that. What I am saying is that I think it is getting a little bit silly when Sonos is like, you know, they're doing the sacrificial CEO stepping down because the app sucked and made everyone mad. And then they did layoffs, presumably because people were mad at the app and they were losing business. And now it's another round of layoffs, and the focus is still on the app. And this does feel to me like 2 years ago when companies just did layoff after layoff and they were blaming like COVID or just like something general. It's like, no, I think you just wanted to lay off people. Because we're in this zone again. There's another, you know, big waves of layoffs repeatedly. And they're, you know, every company is going to wheel out an excuse for this that isn't their fault. They're doing a little bit in here. The Verge included some of their note, where they said like, "Oh, you know, we have too much." What did they say? So across the company today, we are reorganizing into flatter, smaller, and more focused teams. Basically saying like they have too many people and they need to get rid of people. So I do think that the continued focus on like the app fallout is weird. I know there had to be an effect, but I think at this point it's getting to be kind of silly. Um, David said, Corbin defending big tech. No, I'm not defending Sonos. I just think it's weird to like. I think maybe Sonos wants to make it about the app, and also a lot of tech blogs are kind of copying that angle. Um,
Well,
I do.
I think the tech blog started with the attack on the app, and then Sonos was like, this is a convenient way to excuse a few problems,
Right.
and
Because it's
we'll try to create a narrative that, yeah, we screwed up an app, and now we have to do various things in response to it.
right. Because it is like a fun like revenge story. Is like, wow, you ever make a software update so bad it ruins your company? Like that's just kind of funny. But yeah, it is getting a little bit silly again, especially when it's, well, they say approximately 200 employees, but it's, and this just seems like normal, like tech company layoff. We're like, okay, we need to get rid of X number of people to keep the investors happy. I don't know if this is really fallout from anything specific or not.
So I'm going to speculate a little bit more. So first off, that I agree. This isn't because the app update sucked. If it was just about an app update that angered a bunch of people, they could have just created a second Play Store listing, push back out the old app, and said, okay, we're sorry, we did a bad. Here's the old app. Everyone who wants it, you can download that.
I think people asked them to do that, and they were like, no, we made like back-end changes too, so that doesn't work anymore. I don't know if that was true or not.
Right, and they absolutely could. That absolutely could be true, but and I say this not knowing their back-end system, but I'd be willing to. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say they probably, in a matter of, I'd say about a month or so, probably could have worked out a fix that would have at least helped them limp along until they could have actually properly fixed all this. So yeah, I don't think the app is the issue. What I suspect is the bigger issue, and here's the thing. I think Sonos is doing this for more than just the fact that they want to make the stock price go up. I think that they're doing this because I suspect they are in actual trouble, as they probably should be. The company has actually released very little in the way of new products. Their headphones did in fact nosedive because, yes, partially because of the app, but also because they were overpriced headphones and they didn't really bring anything new. It was headphones that were locked into the Sonos ecosystem. No one wants that except for the very small portion of Sonos like purists, because anyone else is going to look at that and go, no, we want headphones that work with other stuff. We don't want them locked into using this crappy app. So I think that was a big part of it. And then you factor in that their speakers have started gaining an increasingly bad reputation for things like basically having a kill switch. So if they're old enough, they can just kill the speaker so it's no longer functional. You know, things like that are a problem. And Sonos has also angered a lot of people through some of their aforementioned bad faith activity. The key point here is people have figured out Sonos is a bad company to buy from for a number of reasons. So I think the company is actually suffering for this.
Yeah, I'd believe that. Especially when, people are having the same, at least internal thoughts about Sonos as like I've done with a lot of tech companies, where it's like this company seems like they're on a bad road.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing a lot of stuff I don't like, and with Sonos and with a lot of the tech companies I've thought about this with is like if I buy something from these guys, I'm like in there. I have to, I'm gonna, if I'm going to Sonos and buying 5 speakers, I'm gonna be one of those people that's like, damn, I really like to switch to something else because this shit sucks. But I already have like $2,000 worth of audio equipment. So I'm sunk cost fallacying the hell out of that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so their reputation is, I agree, it is probably an issue now because like with this kind of investment, you're going to think about that a lot more in a way you wouldn't with other tech products and ecosystems necessarily. So yeah, I don't doubt that they're having like serious problems. But yeah, I just think that the very narrow focus on the app being bad is kind of weird.
Yeah, but to be fair, that's also The Verge focusing on that, and so and Sonos obviously kind of re-perpetuating it as part of their excuse for letting people go. But yeah, my hunch is that they genuinely just were so mismanaged that they were blowing money, part of which in legal fees, while also while not releasing anything appreciably new or interesting. And which, okay, granted, the headphones technically were new and interesting-ish, but not particularly motivating. And yeah, I think they're coming in significantly under because they're spending more than they're making, plain and simple. And a company can only go so long in that mode, except of course for Twitter under old Twitter, not current Twitter.
Right.
Current Twitter,
right.
Sonos it brings in as much as
is,
Elon's willing to funnel in.
Right, Sonos is not like influencing elections yet, so maybe that's the growth route for them.
Yeah. So all of this to say, and I think kind of bringing us back to at least my original point of, holy crap, Sonos is making a streaming box and they think people should buy it for $200 to $400. They must think people are really stupid. There, I've said my piece.
I'm still using my Xbox as my media streaming stick, even though it uses a fuck ton of power in that mode. Relative to like what a Roku would be using, but it's like I'm out of HDMI ports and I really don't want to unplug and replug in stuff, so I'm just gonna I'll take the like $2 on my power bill every month. I'm sorry. I'm killing the environment by using my Xbox to watch Disney Plus.
You are literally as evil as OpenAI.
Yep, that's true.
So, like I said, my streaming device of choice is the OG NVIDIA Shield, and it, as crazy as it is, like I had enough Google Store credit that I could have bought the Google Streamer or TV streamer with, I think I would have had to kick in like an extra $9 or something. And I seriously sat there considering it, and then it was like, no, I literally don't even want that. Like, I don't care that it's a much newer device. It's also a compromised product. Or at least in my perspective, it's compromised. Though I think I've heard enough other people say that it like it's just good enough, but it needed to be, or it should have been better for the price. And like it's still great. It's such a good streaming device, and like at this stage, if somebody wants to spend a little bit more to get like the best thing you can, I would just point them to go getting one of the newer Shields. That's,
I mean, like it. Yeah, if I was recommending a streaming thing, I'd be like, Roku, but you got to turn like everything off.
Yeah.
Or if you have $120 an Apple TV, because Apple is not pulling the like hyper aggressive advertising or like analyzing what you're doing for ads yet. We won't let them off the hook as easily.
Um. Well, okay. So the advertising portion. Now, the analysis, as far as I can tell, yeah, it's as far as I can tell, they aren't doing it. Um, Google, I believe, isn't doing it either, but I'm not sure. If Google is doing the analysis stuff, I haven't heard anyone talk about it. I haven't seen any proof that it's happening. And so, I think when you get into the analysis stuff, that starts getting into a bad place. Sony TVs do actually have this, but it can be turned off with a single toggle. So I don't like it being there, but I'm also not getting outraged at it as long as you can turn it off. That said, Apple, Google, and everybody else, they all do advertising. I mean, they all put advertisements up for a new show on some streaming network. And yeah, I'm okay with that. In the same way that I'm okay with going to a movie theater and they play trailers for upcoming movies, I'm okay with my streaming box having some sort of advertising on the home screen for stuff that's coming up, as long as the advertising takes only a portion of the screen, and as long as it does not autoplay, as long as it doesn't do two things when it autoplays. I'll allow it to autoplay as long as, one, it doesn't take over the screen, and two, it doesn't play sound.
Right. Yeah. I'd agree. There's like a fine line where it's fine, but I've seen Amazon really push that.
Yeah. Amazon overdoes it.
Yeah. I don't know if Google has to that extent.
So Google does do, or has done. I don't know if they still do this. From what I can tell, they stopped. But at one point, they had a thing where if the home screen sat long enough for the entire carousel to play through. So the carousel, what it mostly does is it just shows banners for given shows. Sometimes it will show kind of like part of the show's trailer auto playing during the length of that banner, but it does so silently. But at one point, once it had played through the entire carousel and wrapped back around, or maybe it was on the last one, I forget which, then it would actually take over the full screen and play a trailer. I don't remember if it played with audio or not. They have since stopped doing this, and they stopped. This is a thing that happened like 2 or 3 years ago, and I think it only lasted for like 2 months. I'm not even sure it lasted 2 months. And at one point I saw for sure that it took over the screen, but it did it without playing audio. And then I think they stopped doing that entirely and just went to keeping like some auto playing video in just a limited portion of the screen. So Google pushed too far and then reined it back, at least on this Shield. Technically, I don't know if they do this in the TV streamer. Someone else could answer that maybe, but I'm assuming that they do it the same all over.
Diablo said it just went to my carousel right now. They don't look as bad and didn't overtake the screen.
Okay.
I assume that's on like Google TV, which is like the full experience.
Yeah. Which at this stage, I think the Shield really just has the same thing. They just don't have some of the specific Google features. So I think it's the same ads and the same takeover behavior, but
yeah, you said it was the Chromecast 4K. So,
okay.
That's good. We've got independent confirmation. We love to see it.
Yeah. So but this is all to say, I expect ads, and I'm okay with some degree of ads as long as they don't actively interfere with my ability to use the interface. Because at any moment, I want to be able to sit down, pick up the controller, and immediately start doing the thing I actually wanted to do. If there's any sort of takeover that interferes with that, you're dead to me. But basically, up to that point, I'm probably okay with it.
So yeah, that's the Sonos thing coming from two people who do not use Sonos products. So I hope you find our takes insightful.
Hey, for what it's worth, a lot of people don't use Sonos products.
That's true. And
Either due to
probably
cost or
probably for the
having good
better.
taste.
Yeah. I shrimply have a soundbar that might be like a decade old. I'm not really sure. It's some like LG thing that it doesn't have HDMI pass or anything. It's just like some optical connection to the TV.
Oh yeah,
Um,
SPDIF.
and then it has a subwoofer thing that I think works over Bluetooth, and it's just in the corner of my living room. Sounds fine. Works fine. I have no reason to replace it. So we're gonna replace this topic now.
Yes, we are.
Briefly talk about Satechis.
I've always said
Satechi.
Sateki.
Sateki. That sounds better. Satechi's Mac Mini stand and hub. So they made one of these for the previous Mac Mini and the Mac Studio because those had the same horizontal form factor. It's a little thing that goes under the computer, and you plug it into one of the Thunderbolt ports on the Mac, and it adds a bunch of front and rear I/O, some USB ports, SD card reader, all that fun stuff. It's especially nice on the Mac Mini when Apple was refusing to do. Well, they still mostly refuse to do front-facing I/O. They put like a little bit. I think the Mac Studio had like a like an SD card reader on the front, and I think the new Mac Mini has the two USB and a headphone jack on the front, so it's kind of nice. But it just adds more ports to the front and back, and then on the inside is a M.2 connector, so you can add more storage without it being like a drive hanging off your computer. So at CES, they announced a updated one of these for the new Mac Mini because the new Mac Mini is a different shape, so it doesn't fit the old dock anymore. And you can now buy it. They released it, I believe it was today. They say this is limited availability at first. I don't know if that's real or not. Maybe they're just saying that so you buy it faster. But this is just for the M4 Mini, and it adds
Two
where do they have this
USB-A 10 gigabit ports,
okay.
a USB-A 480 megabit port, which I think it's kind of funny that they had to just throw in the extra one with the little bit extra speed, or well, much less speed, but you get it. It's got an SD card reader, which supports up to UHS 2, and then it again has the M.2 NVMe SSD enclosure. So yeah, I mean,
And also notably a big chunk taken out so you can reach the power button now that
yes.
Apple has put the power button on the bottom of the computer. I'm a little bit disappointed they didn't try to do any fun like physical mechanism where like there's a button on the hub part that like turns a gear or something to push the button for you. But I understand that probably could have caused issues, so
Very
I
likely.
get it. It would have been fun though.
So, um, yeah, I have kind of a combo of takes on this. One, I well, before actually, I guess before I deliver the takes, I will say, credit to them for making this look pretty nice.
Yeah,
It
it
it,
just
it
it just
actually is a
looks
very
like a
stylish, and it totally fits in and matches the style. So kudos to them. They did that part right. Where I'm
Diablo said they should replace that third A port with a C port. The Mac Mini itself already has a lot of C ports, so I think their logic was like, well, there's no USB A ports, so let's just max that out because the computer itself has Thunderbolt, USB 4, all around it.
It's, if I remember correctly, it's what, one port in front, three in back of USB-C, or was it two in front?
It's the two in front, three in the back. It looks like from this picture, or that last one might be the Kensington lock slot.
I'm pulling it up on Apple's site now. Okay, it's two in front.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
then
I mean
definitely
like
three in the back.
okay.
So
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, so I totally get the USB-A because I will say like for me, and I'm assuming 90% of people, uh everything desktop stuff is still USB-A.
yeah,
To the point where like when this came out, I think I had a discussion in my Discord and maybe at work too, I don't remember, where like basically everyone who buys this computer is probably going to need to be like get at least one dongle because like basically all wired keyboards are still USB-A. If you have like a monitor that's a USB hub, that's probably USB-A, like mine. Like like a bunch of speakers and other like everything, microphones. So it makes sense to me that they would build this and make like all of the extra ports USB-A because that's what you're going to need at a I think most desktop setups. Maybe not if you're like fully on the Bluetooth train and you just don't really need to plug anything in. But I'm not one of those people. I have a lot of wired things.
I am somewhat inclined to counter that by saying certainly not everything, but a lot of the products these days have interchangeable cables. So while a USB-A cable might come in the box, you can probably just replace it with USB-C. At least
also,
most things. There obviously are a few things with fixed cables, and in those cases, yeah, you have to use an adapter or a dongle.
Yeah, and at least for some of those ports on the Mac Mini, maybe all of them, they're Thunderbolt 5 and USB 4. So all of those ports have a lot of bandwidth, so you can go dongle crazy on any of them.
Pretty much, yeah.
Because I mean, this hub is just operating off one port.
Yeah.
So you've got a lot to bandwidth.
So one thing that feels kind of off about this to me is, and here's where I'm going to kind of slap Apple a little bit, but also kind of slap Sateki. First, yes, I'll credit them again. Yay, they added USB-A ports, and while I think we're reaching the point where you probably don't need very many of those, if you need any at all, this is something Apple should have had anyway. There's no reason they couldn't have had some USB-A ports in the Mac Mini. They just chose not to. And look, the Mac Mini, I'm sorry, but you can even look at it. They could have done a second row of ports on above the existing ports. It would have been okay. There's room. And I haven't looked at a teardown of the Mac Mini body, but I have a hunch that they had space inside of it. They could have fit them.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing that like I definitely talked about before. The new Mac Mini came out, and probably on whatever Rambo was after it, like there's less of a need to have something like this super small, and when it's super small, you're making run out of room. Right. Like I've said this, I still think it, like, yes, the new Mac Mini is cute. And it's cool that they made like a really great computer that is also small and like could just go on a desk and not take up any desk space. But I still would have preferred to keep the old Mac Mini size or whatever, close to it, and they just actually use all the empty space they've had since they moved away from Intel. Like they had absolutely could have put another like 1 or 2.5 inch drive bays in there. They could have added more ports, probably, especially on the front. They didn't have anything on the front. The front used to have a DVD drive, and then they took it out. So there's definitely, I would have preferred them to do that, but they weren't going to do that because they were Apple. They were going to make it more compact. So
Yeah. So yeah, the mere fact that they sacrificed so much space, again, I'm fine with them shrinking it. I really am. I think shrinking it was actually kind of neat. I do remember one of my big points in that ramble where we talked about this. I remember asking, why did they shrink it the way they did? Like, I think they could have made it pocketable, and they chose not to. And I think that was a mistake. Or they could have made it so it would have been much easier to mount on like the back of a monitor. And while you certainly could do that with this one, it's maybe not the form factor or like the particular design that would have been best for that, because there you want something that's more, you'd want something thinner and flatter, whereas this is a little bit less footprint but taller. So they could have made different choices for it, and I think they kind of picked the worst combination that they could have. So yeah, I think Apple made a lot of weird and not the most optimal choices with this one. And then when it comes to Sateki, I find myself like, okay, look, I 100% I want to give them credit for putting in the NVMe enclosure. That part's awesome. That's great. They did the right thing with that. But it just otherwise, it's 3 USB-A ports and a SD card reader. I mean, Apple should have probably had the SD card reader in the Mac Mini in the first place, so that's on Apple. And again, I think they could have put in USB-A ports too, but whatever. But I feel like Sateki also had opportunities to maybe put in, I'm not sure what else, but I think they could have put in something else. Just to make it a little bit more interesting or a little more flexible, or I don't know what. I'm freely admitting I don't even know what I would put in there in addition to these, but this feels like something where
obviously a FireWire port. That's a huge.
Yeah. That right there, that answers it. I don't have that perfect answer of what I'd put in, but I feel like they could have put in something else, because it's a fairly large footprint and they've got a lot of space on the front where they could have put more stuff. Are the USB ports going on the front or the back? They go on the front.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So yeah, the only thing on the back is basically just the cutout for the power button, and that's it. And of course the plug that goes from the base to the Mac Mini. Yeah, I just feel like they're making the same mistake Apple is by wasting some space that they probably could have been more creative with.
I think it should have gone on top of the Mac Mini. It can be like a hat.
Maybe. Though I don't know if this is the case, but I'm choosing to believe that maybe their heat dissipation is actually improving the Mac Mini's heat rather than making it worse. In which case, maybe this is actually an improvement.
I hope they make more and you can keep stacking them. Like I think I don't know if it was some of the early Macs or like early PCs that did this, but they had like the giant external drives, but it would be stacking horizontally. So you'd have like your monitor and then like like three like vertical things on the side. Just do that, but it's a stack. You're stacking it. It's that'd be fun, I think.
I lived through
Um,
some of those days. You do not want this.
I should be a product designer. Diablo said daisy chain linking. Let's go. No, I mean you don't need a daisy chain. Then they just use all three of those USB ports on the back.
Yeah. So, um,
Although you are supposed to be able to do like daisy chaining with Thunderbolt, but I don't think this is technically using Thunderbolt. It's probably just USB.
yeah.
USB 4, whatever this has. I can't. I get them. I get them mixed up. Anyway, so you can go buy that if you have a M4 Mac Mini. It's $100. Um, which like if I was getting an M4 Mac Mini, I would maybe that's worth it. Just like a NVMe enclosure like they've got there. If it's up to 10 gigabits, like they say, that's probably like 40 or $50 for an external one on its own. So if you're only going to use it with the Mac Mini, and a little bit more money gets you like a much nicer looking enclosure and more IO.
You
It
know,
seems fine to me. Although in my
I
case, I
wonder
do like.
if there's any reason you couldn't use this with anything else. I can't imagine there would be. If this
Yeah,
is
you
just
should
a
be able to.
hub, then you could plug
Yeah.
in just about anything. I mean, yes, it would be a bit of a it's a short cable and it would be a bit of a awkward form factor, but
Right.
yeah, hey. I mean, after you're done with the Mac Mini, you in theory could just keep using this and it would still make a perfectly good SSD enclosure and yay, USB-A ports, which by the time you're done using that Mac Mini, USB-A should probably be dead and gone, but we'll see.
Yeah, I definitely do like my external SSD where I got a I think it's just a normal like USB 3.1 enclosure. It's not anything fancy because I don't need incredible speeds. But I got one of those enclosures and I got like a Samsung NVMe drive, and that's been a good like extra storage for my Mac. So I had Time Machine backing up to that, but now I have a NAS, so that goes to the NAS. So recently it's just been like I need to transfer a lot of files from one computer to the other, and we still haven't really figured out how to do this over a network all that well. So I'm formatting a partition on this as NTFS, and I'm gonna do it that way. And also more recently, Final Cut Drive, because my Mac Mini is kind of full, so I can just move all that to the other drive, and it's fine.
Yeah. This by the way is why I am dying for the day that I actually get to do a full like upgrade across the board to 10 gigabit Ethernet, because oh my god, I would love to just be able to throw footage like video footage onto a NAS and yeah, just straight edit from there, which you can totally do with really no stress over a 10 gigabit network connection. You do not want to try to do this over 1 gigabit, not with any high bitrate video.
And it would need to be SSDs in the NAS.
SSDs or some good caching.
Yeah.
If you've got decent caching going on your system, then you don't really need SSDs. They just help.
Yeah, so that's the hub. Next thing, which will just be kind of short, is I wrote a fun thing on the spacebar about the original Opera Mini web browser, and using it in 2025. Opera Mini was a web browser that was mostly used on flip phones in like the mid 2000s. Kind of the cool thing was that it was a very basic Java app, so it ran on like every phone of the era basically, and it allowed you to, when you loaded a page through Opera Mini, it sent the page to one of Opera's servers, and that rendered the page and then sent it back to you. So that way you could get like for basically the first time is like the full web on a normal phone. There were normal phones that had like better browsers. There were PDAs, but it was more accessible, which I think was neat.
Um, yeah, I think I'm inclined to argue about the use of the term full web because it was definitely
Right.
it was sort of semi-intelligently downgrading web pages to something a little bit to something lighter weight and with a less demanding DOM. Um, Web developers know the term DOM. I imagine most enthusiasts kind of do, but yeah, we're
Yeah, like
talking document object model here.
you could have like actual web pages, or something resembling them, and not just like the websites purpose built for phones,
yeah,
which were the WAP pages, but
yes.
also not the WAP you're thinking of.
Yeah,
So,
we're not talking about the WAP you're thinking of, and we're not talking about the DOMs you're thinking of.
right, get your head out of the gutter. We're talking about web browsers. So
Which are used for
even
putting your head in the gutter.
right, even though you know, Opera Mini started to fade out like once everyone had smartphones that had like the full WebKit engine on them, and Opera Mini started to fade out of popularity, but it is in fact still running, and you can use Opera Mini today. So that's what I did. I did a little hands-on where I ran Opera Mini on my Mac because I don't currently have a phone that it can run on. I mean, maybe if I like go find like a really old Android APK of it, maybe, but that's the fun was like using its original form, which was the Java INI version. So that's what I was running. And surprisingly, it doesn't really work all that well, if you can believe it. Most web pages are
it didn't work all
busted.
that well when it was modern.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's what I said in the article, but like, yeah, most websites don't really work with this. I was kind of interested in sort of the modern infrastructure of this, like what does it look like now? And at least according to the user agent string, it is still using like on the server side, it's still using the Opera browser with Opera's rendering engine, which it killed a decade ago. So it's using kind of like the last of like Opera's own tech, and which didn't really work all that well, or a lot of websites did not support full Opera well when it was new, and that's why they switched to Chromium. So this is that, but also heavily modified. So heavily modified decade-old web browser. It makes a lot of sense that this doesn't really work. It does work for some websites, though. There's a lot of websites that are like lightweight versions that are made to load over slow connections, or like websites I've found that are for like older computers that are supposed to kind of work in older browsers. Those work. So it is interesting. But yeah, the full hands-on is there. I am interested in why this still exists, and when it's shutting down. Part of me thinks that Opera just forgot it runs this. I think that's a distinct possibility, and I fear that I've jinxed it by calling attention to it. We'll find out. But I maybe there's still some support contracts that have them still running this, because part of the pitch for Opera Mini was like, it wasn't just a product that was for users. It was like, hey, T-Mobile, you want to sell data plans, right? But all your customers suck and they only have Razr phones. Well, here's your way to sell them data plans, is they can get quote unquote the full web on the phone they already have. So, and Opera Mini was used like in a lot of other embedded stuff. So maybe there's still some contracts or something that say they have to run that for those. I don't know. I think they just don't care all that much, and it's probably costing them not a lot of money to keep this running. So I think they'll kill it eventually, and that's why I wanted to write about it, because it is, for the moment, it is alive, and I wanted to document it.
So, yeah, having been around when this was a thing, um, certainly a lot of people did use it. Uh,
I did use it back in the day. I
oh, okay.
installed it on a family member's phone at one point, and then I think s- uh someone was like, "Oh, why is there this data charge on my bill?" So I did that. Oops. And then I did use it on my iPhone 3G when it was new, because there were like occasional like when I had that iPhone, I didn't actually have a phone plan. It was like just a Wi-Fi only device,
Mm,
and there were a lot of Wi-Fi networks that were really slow and bad. Um, and it, you know, it worked. This worked significantly better over slow connections than just native, trying to load full desktop sites on an iPhone 3G in 2010, 20. I don't know when I was
mhm.
using that, but it was rough back then. And that was also one of the only web browsers allowed on iPhone for a long time because Apple blocked anything that ran external code, but it wasn't running external code. It was just, loading the, compressed streams from Opera servers that were running the code, which was funny.
So, what I was going to bring up though is while Opera was doing this, they also had Opera Mobile, which
Right. Which was
was,
an actual mobile browser that was doing the rendering on the
yep.
device.
And this was one of the biggest motivating factors that pulled me into like the smartphone. I don't know if I can call it an addiction, but my fascination with smartphones at that time. Um, it really got me going kind of down the rabbit hole with Windows Mobile, because frankly, the phone that I had that could run either Opera Mini or Opera Mobile, it was certainly capable of both. Um, it ran Opera Mobile slowly enough that I wasn't particularly happy with it, and I hated how Opera Mini ran or what it did. So, because one, I didn't really want Opera to be, openly spying on everything that it rendered for
Right.
me. But two, I didn't like the idea that there was like on page script that I just couldn't run because that's, Opera Mini basically it
Right.
was effectively like unintentionally running no script in a sense.
Right.
So,
Well, I mean, eventually got to the point where like websites had like a couple seconds to like, you got to wrap it up now, and then we're sending the page over.
yeah. So, yeah, I didn't like the sacrifices that came with Opera Mini, and I didn't like the performance of Opera Mobile on the device that I had. So, yeah, I pretty quickly moved on to the, hey, I really want a better Windows Mobile device, and that got me onto kind of a string of, all right, I'm upgrading my phone like every year now, kind of territory. Um, if not even more commonly than that. And so yeah, I got really deep into that, and once I was on that train, it's like, ooh, hey, there's other stuff out there too. And I was kind of avoiding the iPhone. Well, I did end up getting an iPhone 4 at one point, but um, yeah, after that, it's like I picked up uh, a, a Windows Phone device. I got some BlackBerry phones, all pre-release devices, as it were. Um, and yeah, uh, I never got WebOS. So I think the only major mobile OS I didn't get that, and technically Firefox had their one phone.
Yeah. Well, I know there were a lot of Firefox OS phones.
Yeah,
Um,
I still
but
didn't get
not
one.
yeah. I have a Firefox phone. I'd also never got a WebOS phone. Maybe eventually. Um, but this article did push me to get a Windows Mobile phone, which is supposedly coming tomorrow. Because I was like, that's neat. I never used that entire ecosystem, and maybe I can get some hashtag content out of it. Because Opera still has the downloads for the Windows mobile version of Opera Mini, so I want to try that. I don't know how side loading works on Windows Mobile. I'll find out, I guess.
Oh, you're gonna love it.
Great.
And no, I actually, it is as good as it could have possibly been. It's literally just like, it was basically APKs, except you could always just drop them on the phone at any time, run them just like an installer file on Windows, and it takes you through an install process. Generally, not always, but generally, you only had to like tap 2 buttons and it was done. The install process was actually good. Uninstalling was sometimes a little hinkier, but I mean, you've used Windows, you know.
It's just like Windows.
It really was.
Yeah, that's good.
There was a lot of stuff that was a little too much like Windows. And just wait till you play with the file manager.
Yeah, well, the one I got, I what did I order? I think it was HTC something.
HTC Touch 2, if I remember. Or maybe it was the original Touch.
Yeah, it's a Touch 2. Yeah, so I was looking at some videos of this, and this is 2009. It is all touchscreen. I really don't want to use a physical keyboard. No, thank you. Or at least like not the slidey kind. But this does have like, HTC was like, they like kind of ported their really old HTC Sense skin to Windows Mobile, and it looks really jank. So that's going to be fun for me. And it apparently does come with Opera Mobile as well, so that's kind of fun. But yeah, the one I got, it does have supposedly Wi-Fi, so I can use this on the internet. I don't have a phone line to put in it. I'm assuming that wouldn't even work, but I'm not going to try that. At least right now. We'll see. Again, the possibilities of content.
Let's see. So the Touch 2 was HTC Mega. Okay, yeah, I didn't have this one. What was the one I had? Well, I had a couple. I think I had the original Touch, but it was technically no, that was the Elf. I had the Diamond, which AT&T had called it the Touch Pro or Touch Pro 2. And I had, was it the Cruise? Yeah, I had I think it was a Cruise, which is this device pictured here. Anyone watching on stream can see. And yeah, that was a
why does it look like someone mixed a phone and an iPod in a blender?
Okay, so that's actually not even a wheel. It obviously is shaped like a wheel, but it was just a D-pad.
Okay.
But yeah, it was actually a pretty great device, and that was my first. It wasn't technically my first Windows mobile device. I also had the Tornado.
HTC's product names were just incredible.
Okay, these actually weren't product names; they were code names. I know most of these by their code names, not by their actual product names.
Well, they did make an actual product called the HTC Thunderbolt, though. So they were no stranger to wild names.
Okay, so it wasn't the Tornado I had, but the one I had was very similar to this. If you just got rid of the round buttons that are pictured here, then that's what I had. And I don't care enough to look up exactly which version I had. But yeah, it was oh wait. Oh no, it's not that one, but it's closer to that one. Anyway, yeah, so that was my first. It didn't have a touch screen. It was just purely use the the little directional stick that was in the middle of it, plus the regular touch buttons, or well, press buttons, and then upgrading to the first full touchscreen device, though it still had the buttons for call stuff, and then I progressively moved up through the line until I eventually went to an iPhone for a very short span of time before then going over to Android and staying there ever since.
I've never used or seen a Windows mobile phone as far as I can remember. So this will be, thought it'd be fun, and it was like $50 on eBay. So I'm assuming it works. We'll find out.
Yeah. And I actually still have at least some of my old ones. The only regret I have is I never got an HD2.
Mm-hmm.
The phone that has infamously run every OS that has ever existed.
That should be a Tech Tales or a Spacebar article, or both.
I honestly think it should be a Tech Tales.
Yeah,
just because
could be both. I've done both.
No, that's fair. But it feels like it should be both, just because going over the list of all the different operating systems that people have gotten running on it, the moment that you can just have the out loud laughter that comes with, and it ran this, and it ran this, and it ran this, that becomes a good moment. That's solid reaction content.
How much longer it was supported than modern smartphones today.
Well,
guess what? The HTC Touch, the HD2 outlasted every phone.
Basically, yeah. I would take issue with the word supported, because it was definitely not officially supported. It's just the community knew so much about that phone that and because of there were 2 or 3 hardware or component choices that were very open, it was actually very, very easy to handle the drivers and even port them and do some weird hinky stuff with them. They managed to do so much with it because of that, and it's wild.
That is a fun, I think there's probably a lot of stuff in custom ROMs that's fun to do hashtag content about. I think it'd be fun to go back and look at all the weird custom boot animations and stuff people were making, because I remember that vividly. But that is a fun thing that I haven't thought about in a while, is I used to buy devices based on the perception of community software support for them. I was like, all right, I know I'm getting this phone because it has official signage and mod and seems like it'll be supported for a while.
Okay, so
that's a thing I just haven't thought about in a while. It's no, I just buy the new phone that's out, and I maybe change the wallpaper.
So there came a point, because I certainly did the same thing, but I went almost a little overboard with it. There came a point, because the first phone that I had that was a serious Windows mobile device, very very famously on the XDA community, somebody discovered that the phone had a GPU in it that was effectively going unused. And so people started doing a little hacking around, and they figured out, hey, we can not only enable this, we can actually get some stuff running on it. And they started messing around some more, and eventually a driver was written using, a driver was harvested off of a different phone, but it had a nearly identical GPU. So they wrote a shim that basically got it working, and before long, so much hacking had been done on that phone, and I just had this one by accident. As a result, I started watching Chainfire specifically, and from time to time asking like, "Hey, what's the next phone you're getting?" Because whatever it is, because he was the one who did the driver.
Right.
Whatever it is, I want to know I'm getting the same phones because I assume you're probably going to do the hacking to keep this phone going or improve it way beyond anything HTC intends to do. And yeah, just so he was usually a little too cagey about what he was going to get, but I did make a couple of buying decisions based on stuff that I knew he was going to pick up. And coincidentally, I became friends with him years later, so that was kind of neat. But yeah, just certain devices got crap community support, and others were supported amazingly. And this is a large part of why HTC ended up like having its big moment in the sun, because community support for HTC devices was incredible compared to like Samsung was also making Windows Mobile devices and nobody cared. Just no one, there was no community interest at all in those.
Yeah, so I'll have to try it out. Of course, I just noticed on the specs page that this has a mini USB connector, which I probably should have assumed was kind of gross.
That's okay. Awful, yes.
It's not proprietary though. I've got that going for me.
You know, almost I mean, maybe the Samsung devices might have used proprietary plugs, but I believe all of HTC's smartphones were pretty much mini or micro USB.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously eventually USB-C, but you know, the timing.
I can't believe they I can't believe they skipped it on this 2009 phone. That was pretty silly of them.
Yeah. But hey, the move to mini was, or sorry, micro was huge. I really wish micro had happened much sooner.
So yeah, I'll play with that. Maybe that's more content. If nothing else, it's a distraction from the horrors. So, and you know, it's another test device for image share. Gonna make sure my web app works in mobile Opera. I don't. Oh, I'm gonna assume. I never tried. I don't think I can try image share in Opera Mini on my computer because it doesn't do the file upload. I don't know if it would work on an actual device intended for it. I don't know if they ever allowed file uploads through Opera Mini. I'll try it out. I'll report back.
If they did, it certainly was not back in the early days of Opera Mini. I suppose they could have added it eventually, but I never heard about it.
Yeah, well, I'll find out. All right, so just a quick thing. If you curse at Google, it will turn off AI results. So Google famously turned on their AI overview thing that puts a big AI generated answer at the top of a lot of search results. And there's not really an easy way to turn it off. There's like some URL flags you can do that I think work. Another thing I saw making the rounds was just using Google's custom web search thing, where it's like the thing they let websites use for like making their own internal search pages. You can just use that as a web search, and it looks like Google from 2008. Which I actually need to try. This sounds fun, and I have used that for its intended purpose. I made a custom Google search specifically for Tech Tales research at one point, and it was like filtered to like 50 websites that were roughly kind of what I wanted to use as sourcing. Because if you can believe it, like 25-year-old New York Times articles don't show up on the first few pages of normal Google results. That's kind of crazy. So yeah, someone realized that you can just put cuss words in your Google searches, and because the AI is, you know, generally non-combative. I guess there's just some safety mechanism that went in somewhere where it won't try to make AI answers. So in Ars Technica, they'd use an example of how do you turn on Google AI results, and showed an AI results, and then they did the same search, but they said, how do you turn off fucking Google AI results? And it shows just a normal search card. So yeah, you can cuss out Google and not see an AI answer, I guess.
Life hack.
Yeah.
And cheers to this. I mean, I don't know why this would be a thing, but I think it's great that they have it just because.
Yeah, it's just funny. It's funny. And also, I don't like that DuckDuckGo is now defaulted to these AI results too. I think they do let you turn it off, but it's really cool. It's really cool everyone decided to do this, even though there's no one who really wants it, except the search provider.
I really haven't figured out why it's a thing, because don't get me wrong, it's not like I don't look at them, and from time to time they actually are correct, and from time to time they definitely aren't. But yeah, I don't get the point. Why are they a thing? And moreover, like, we know that it adds a cost to every search. We know Google is paying a higher cost for this. We know Bing is paying a higher cost for this. Is it really helping? At some point, and why automatic? Why not just maybe have a button or even just a toggle that says, yeah, I want this, or no, I don't want this? It just seems like,
I mean, when
stupid.
this first rolled out, as like a test, I did enable it because I have to be tech journalist and try these things out occasionally. And like after about a couple days, I just started instinctively scrolling past it.
Yeah.
And then I eventually turned it off because like, well, I'm burning the environment for no reason. And then it got turned on for everyone, so that was fun. But I will say, one thing I would do, I've told many people this, if I had unlimited time, is I would just sit at Google and type in random questions all day long. And I would catch the AI tripping up, because it happens very often. It actually did for me earlier today, but on something that wasn't funny, so it doesn't matter. And then every time it trips up, I write an article about it. And it would just literally be unlimited content. I just sit on Google all day and type things in until it works. Maybe I should employ an AI to do this for me, because I think you could do this. I think I could ask ChatGPT to start asking Google questions that are wrong and just automate content this way. Because I think you can do, because this still happens like once a week. Someone's like, well, Google just told someone to put glue in their food or whatever, and then it makes the rounds long enough for Google to turn off the AI result for that specific answer, and then a week later it happens, and we've been going through this for months. So this still happens a lot.
Okay, if you were to do this, you absolutely need to start a social media account titled "Shit My Google Says."
That's good. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you get that reference?
Yeah. One of the very old. Was it like a Twitter account?
Yeah,
I don't remember.
There was a Twitter account named "Shit My Dad Says," and it was some guy who his father used to just say all kinds of crazy outlandish stuff, and sometimes offensive, sometimes just weird or dumb or whatever, and he would repost it. And this managed to become popular enough that I think he ended up like writing a book or something like that. Anyway, then eventually someone approached him from one of the TV networks, and they made a TV show titled "Shit My Dad Says," and it starred William Shatner as the dad.
Okay, I think I forgot about the TV, or never. I think I feel like I remember that vaguely, but I forgot.
It was actually a I'm not going to call it a charming show, but it wasn't as, I mean, it was bad, but it was also bad in a pretty entertaining, like enjoyable way. So I don't know how well it ages. Fair warning, if anyone decides to go watch this, bear in mind it was already probably a little edgy at the time, and now I bet I would not be surprised if a few of those episodes aged very poorly. Kind of like a lot of things Shatner has said over the years.
Mm.
Nice guy, but yeah, he's popped up with a few comments here and there that were little unkosher.
So now you put save for next week, but I think we can just run through this in like 3 minutes.
Okay.
So there was a lot of AI stuff happening recently. The main thing was the DeepSeek R1 model coming out, which was like a week and a half ago now, I think. And it briefly shocked the stock market, or at least Nvidia's stock, just because a lot of the demand for Nvidia hardware and just hardware in general right now is like, we need more GPUs to do more AI training, and presumably DeepSeek, not DeepSync.
That's what it did to the stock market.
Yeah. It was made in China, presumably under all of China's import restrictions. Like, the U.S. has had a very targeted goal for the past couple years of not letting China import very nice GPUs, so that they will be behind in the great AI race. And then it turns out, well, I guess they didn't need that. They just made a model that was, but basically my understanding is that this works very similar to OpenAI's like O1 model, and I think in Microsoft Copilot it's called Think Deeper, where basically it's an LLM, but it sort of like asks itself to check its answers like several times. So kind of like a weird workaround, but the end result is that it makes things up a lot less often. So that normally, with the way OpenAI was doing it, it had a much higher cost because it is literally running itself like over and over and over again to get the finished answer. And my understanding is this works a little bit differently, but it gets to kind of the same result where you see it process information in real time and get what should be a more thoughtful answer. I don't really like personifying these things. It's not thinking, but it's processing the information in a different way that's less prone to just lying.
Well, and another part of it is it's also doing I forget what particular term they use for it, but I'm just going to call it specialists. Basically the idea is they train instead of having a whole model that is hit every single time that you ask, let's say, a medical question. And medical is a bad example of this, but let's just use that because it's easier to like think about that way. If you ask a medical question, OpenAI was hitting its entire model with this question, and it obviously eventually works to a point where it gets an answer out of it that is whatever it would produce. Whereas DeepSeek, what it's doing is it has portions of its model that are specialized to a medical answer, or personal, or like specialized to this thing or that thing, and then it processes most of it through just that portion of the model, and then spits out its answer in in the linguistic form that follows. So basically it can use a smaller portion of the model when it needs to, which it optimizes the actual performance. It also makes the training a bit easier because, again, you're not training with, or when some data comes in, it's not affecting or weighting the entire model, it's affecting just the portion that needs to be affected. So yeah, it is a lot more optimal, and this is a technique that already existed, but they took it further. And if you go looking around, you will find descriptions of a lot of the other things that they did to sort of optimize and clean up the performance. The key point is instead of building a model that takes, I forget how many millions and millions of dollars, this took, I think, 5 million to build the model. And you could realistically run it on pretty average gaming GPUs.
Right. Yeah, this can run. This is another like actually open AI model, so you can download it and run it locally. Which I can't because my computers don't have enough RAM. But you know.
So, and the other thing about this is when it came to accuracy, like you said that it was generally better. That it actually wasn't. It was generally a bit worse than OpenAI's whichever model they were comparing against. I forget which.
Use the O1.
Okay. But yeah, the accuracy was lower, but it wasn't by that much. I think they said it had about 90% of the accuracy. Or at least one of the threads I read in describing this, it said the accuracy was about 90% of what OpenAI's was, which, you know, part of me hears that and goes, 10% less or even 5% less is kind of terrible, but at the same time, depending on what you're using it for, that's just fine. So, and if you can use it for so much cheaper and train it for that much cheaper, that's great. And if you then take this technology and scale it up to the level of anywhere close to what OpenAI or Microsoft or anyone else, or Google, whatever they're spending on training, if you do that with the same technology that DeepSeek is doing, you're going to come out with something that is way more accurate, far, far superior, and therefore, logically, you know, the technology is just substantially better. Do we care? It's still AI slop, so you know, use with caution.
It's still, yeah, it's this is, you know, the issue that has not gone away. It's like I've looked at using, you know, AI tools for some of my work, but like every time I try, it just doesn't, you know, if I have to check it every single time for everything it does, like it's just less work to do it myself. It's literally like when you're cheating in school and you go through incredible lengths to cheat. It's like it would have taken you less time to just learn what's on the test. It's a little bit like that. Like I was trying to use I think it was like newer version of Llama a couple weeks ago because I was writing up some Qualcomm announcement and they didn't send me the information in a like usable format. So I was just feeding it all of the PDFs. And I was like, can you make a table that like combines the data from this, and this? And like, it was still fucking up. So yeah, I've not really, I'm still not really integrating into my work at all. But
so, you know what's fun about the if you're like the effort that goes into cheating is not worth it argument you just made. It's funny because I remember in college, going through extraordinary links to sometimes crack copy protection on software or piracy protection to the point where it absolutely would have just been more efficient to pay to use the software legally. But sometimes it was more fun, more interesting, and a better learning experience to crack the software. So so there's an argument can be made that sometimes, doing things the wrong
Sure.
way can be more rewarding than doing them the right way. And I'm not here to endorse software piracy. So,
Right. We would never do that.
no. Never.
So the release of this model kind of freaked out the markets because everyone was like, well, wait a minute, if we don't need like mountains of GPUs to train really good AI models, then seems like Nvidia is going to ship one fewer barge of GPUs in the future. So we're all gonna panic. I think everyone got over that, but
Yeah, it took a few hours and everyone got over it.
Yeah, took a while. Probably made Nvidia panic for a hot second there.
And I would maintain that the reason everyone got over it is exactly what I said earlier. Where, yes, they managed to get 90% of the accuracy at like a tenth or 100th the cost. But all you have to do is then scale up your training, which then requires those GPUs again, and you get better accuracy, better this, better that. We still want that. We still absolutely want all of that. Why? Yeah. So, they improved the process, but didn't remove the reasons for using tons of GPUs.
Yeah. And there was some reporting that supposedly DeepSeek was trained on ChatGPT or output from the GPT model, which is called synthetic training. I know there's been other AI models that have done this, but I forget which ones. I want to say maybe Llama was trained on ChatGPT. I think that's what it was, because some people were getting answers out of Llama that were like ChatGPT standard, like as an AI model, I can't do this, so it kind of busted itself. So I like, this has been a common thing. Like, I guess that's I don't know. Again, I'm not a research person. I guess that's maybe better than archiving the entire internet and dumping it into an AI model if you're just like training the nonsense machine on the other one that already did that damage. I don't know. Maybe that's better.
The reason I actually had this article in the list specifically is because I just wanted to say there is such an irony to the company that has notoriously been brazen about stealing everyone else's content is then going, oh my god, they stole ours! How dare they? No. Don't clutch your pearls on this, you lying trash bags. You stole everything first, and then you wanted to slam the door behind you. No, and F off. You don't get to do that.
It's especially funny because their AI models are not open. So at some point, someone signed up for their API and used it through their like servers. They just didn't know it was these people, which makes it much funnier. It's like Austin said, I can't imagine teaching college level class with Gen AI. I can't imagine like being a teacher at all. Now it sounds horrible, especially in the US where like you get paid in peanuts and you have to deal with kids using AI. That sounds awful. I'm sure it's not fun.
Well, I think it does depend a little bit on the type of course, obviously. It actually depends a lot. I would hate to be an English teacher. 100%. Being an English teacher would be miserable. Or, some sort of a writing teacher. Being the one that I think would be really weird is being a like programming teacher, because a lot of people were already cheating or trading around answers in those classes.
I cheated in AP computer science. Yeah.
And so cheating was already common, but then you take it to the next step where now they're going to use AI, and the AI models for that type of programming were, they're pretty good. And to be fair, a lot of those students were already just going on Stack Overflow for years and saying, hey, I'm trying to do blank, and they do whatever they could to make it look like they weren't asking questions straight off of homework assignment. But yeah, they would just ask how to do this thing or ask how to do that thing, and they'd usually get answers within, you know, an hour or so, mostly because people are desperate to get their points on Stack Overflow. And you know, so like it's already been tough for those teachers to identify students that aren't learning anything, but now you throw AI into the mix, and if someone can manage to take a picture of a test question on their phone, they can let their phone just run that process through Claude or Gemini or any of the better Gemini models, and yeah, their phone could probably spit back out an answer that they could write down on a test, and if the teacher's not watching every minute, they're gonna get away with it.
Yeah, but back in my day, I just put the question in quotes in a Google search, and you'd find someone who like made a Quizlet reverse engineered from the like wherever the teacher got the test questions from. Of course, that was when Google worked, so maybe that hasn't, worked for a while. But yeah, no, it is kind of it's not fun that the Gen AI just kind of like it's the end game of like standardized testing.
Yeah.
In education, it's like, this really doesn't work. Like, it already didn't really work. Now it's definitely broken.
Yeah, it effectively ruined college in many senses, and okay, and I'm talking about college, but man, imagine being a high school teacher at this point. Like, you get paid even worse than you do as a college teacher. You have to put up with students that really don't want to be there, and they don't even have the stake of having paid to be there. And like, your lesson plans are already ruined by the states or the federal government in some way, or about to be for sure. And pile on top of all of it, students are absolutely just going to use ChatGPT to write all their papers. Like, no question to it. And I don't blame them. I would too.
Yeah, and if you're a teacher in the U.S., then like also like some parent is gonna walk in and like accuse you of doing DEI, or you just have to like defend against shooters constantly. So it's if you're a teacher, I'm really sorry. I hope you deserve a lot more money than whatever you're making, for sure.
Yeah, you should at least get paid as much as any babysitter.
You should get paid more than me, because I have far more of a fake job.
Corbin, you did some babysitting of your own, so.
Yeah. Yes. So yeah, that's DeepSeek. It's still making waves. Again, I've not used it because I don't have enough RAM. There is a web version.
Did you have to do the pun?
Did I pun?
It's making waves.
Oh. Yeah, that was unintentional. Sorry. Anyway, yeah, so that's that. And then also, more recently, there was Google releasing all its Gemini 2.0 models, which it actually put in the apps like last week, I think. But today was the official announcement, and adding them to their APIs. So yeah, so Gemini 2 is now available on all the places where you can use Gemini, and all of the APIs where developers can use it. So there's the Gemini 2.0 Flash model, which is kind of, I believe that's their version of like general purpose cloud model. And then there's Flash Lite, which is, they say, are Google's most cost efficient model. I would imagine, is that the one that's running on like Android phones, or is that still Gemini Nano?
Yeah, I think that's what they do.
So these are all still
these are all still cloud based.
Yeah, okay. And then they've got Gemini 2.0 Pro, which is their most costly model, most full featured. I don't know if there's really any like big takeaways from this. It's just kind of what we've been seeing OpenAI and everyone else do, where The uh, the more efficient models get less stupid and remain low cost, which is good. And the more powerful models become uh, more powerful, and they remain like an option if you really need it. But you know, generally it's good that, you know, it's still progressing in the direction of like you can do more with less computational power, because that is what will make this stop burning the Amazon rainforest uh,
Well, it
to an
it's
extent. They still have
it's
to train the models, which is the big thing.
yeah, it's still
But
gonna
actually,
burn the forest. It's gonna take fewer trees as we improve.
right, running them like your Google AI, your Google web searches will not burn the rainforest quite as much. Um,
Honestly, with the web searches, if they can just cache most of the answers and
I
not
think
run
I
them,
I'm
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 assuming they do
positive
some amount of
they're,
that, but
yeah, they have to be, because I know Bing was doing that, because like when I was trying that out, there would be some searches where it takes like a couple seconds, and I know they're running in real time, and then there'd be others that load immediately. So
mhm.
like they were definitely doing caching. Um, so yeah, the new, I guess I'll have to maybe download one of the Gemini models, see if it runs on my Mac Mini. But I have been using the Cloud Gemini for any like chatbot AI stuff if I need like help with a coding thing, because the new Copilot UI sucks. And the Gemini web app is still fine. Like it's still, you know, just a web app with a chat box, but works okay. So that's what I've been using. I don't even pick like what model I'm using. It's just whatever it gives me. So I think that's now okay. Yeah, I've been using 2.0 Flash. Um, it's been fine. You know, I ask it JavaScript questions sometimes. Ask it to write me a regular expression. It's fine for that stuff. Not my actual job though.
Yet.
Yeah, don't give my company ideas. So last thing is OpenAI O3 Mini, which is like, I don't know. I'm so confused by OpenAI's products now. Their naming scheme is incoherent. This is supposed to be like a more efficient version of their reasoning model, like the O1, the DeepSeek kind of thing. Um, this one is supposedly, you know, cheaper to run, more efficient, all that fun stuff. Um, the kind of big thing is if you have a ChatGPT Plus Teamer Pro account, you can use O3 Mini today. And eventually this will replace O1 Mini in the model picker across like everything ChatGPT. Um, which I guess means this is okay. Yeah, and they also say starting today, free plan users can try O3 Mini by selecting reason in the message composer or by regenerating a response. This is the first time a reasoning model has been made available to free users in ChatGPT, which Copilot also did recently. Now in Copilot, there's a Think Deeper button, which I believe uses O1, but maybe it's one of these mini models. I'm not sure. Which I have done a couple of times. Like I'm going through all my software projects now and like evaluating the privacy and security stuff, because you know, the horrors, right? A lot of data is being weaponized right now. I'm trying to make sure I collect as little as possible, because I don't want anyone's personal data. Like, please don't give me anything. I'm gonna make sure you know, the stuff I do collect, I'm like storing it responsibly. So I've been like going through everything. I asked it to make me like a template of a privacy policy after feeding it like what one of my web apps was doing, and it did a pretty good job. One thing I did notice is the Think Deeper option. When it writes, uh, like longer, so basically it's supposed to be used for things that require like a lot of explanation. So a lot of the answers you get from this are like, you know, like small essay, like small article amount of length. And when it's writing in that mode, it doesn't sound anything like the standard ChatGPT writing. Like standard ChatGPT writing, I can now clock immediately because it's everywhere. It sounds the same. You very rarely get like the sentence structure and like the sort of it has a very like school paper way of writing that you can identify, especially when it likes to do like bullet points in a certain way that like the only people doing that was Axios, right? It's very, very identifiable. But this does it. It actually wrote it kind of like in a normal person way, which was neat. Of course, I still ended up like rewriting some of it because it wasn't quite relevant to what I asked, but it was better. So, yeah. So new AI model. Actually, if I log into my account, what does it give me now? Because I think by default it's still using ChatGPT 3.5. I want to say. See if I log in, what is it giving me? Because I just have a free ChatGPT account now. I signed up for a month of the Plus, and it was kind of useless, so I didn't renew that. Oh, actually, it doesn't even tell me what model it is. It just says ChatGPT, and then there's the upgrade for Plus. What if I ask it, what model or what AI model are you using right now? It said I don't know. Okay, sure.
Hey, at least it
I
didn't
think it's
hallucinate something.
yeah. It's actually I'm DeepSeek.
That would be
So
kind of funny. Yeah, they're well, I don't know. I've got so little to say on this, but I feel like this is gonna be the relatively short-lived model that they roll through on their way to integrating all of the stuff from DeepSeek. Because pretty much the minute after DeepSeek happened, everyone said, yep, every other company just dropped what they were doing so that they could start integrating all the technology that DeepSeek did, because it was all open source. So, hey, they're 100% just going to copy all of that, implement it their own way, and regenerate their models.
yep. So that's our AI update. Is more models, and the efficient ones are getting a little bit less stupid. And I still can't use this for work, but I can for other things. Sometimes, still lies sometimes.
So do you. It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. I don't think I had anything else I was gonna add to that. Okay, so also as a side note, Diablo, I saw the link that you dropped in. I will read that later and probably save it for next week, because my voice is going. It's been, and I've just been doing a lot of talking the last like 2 to 3 weeks anyway, and I think kind of overstraining my voice. So I think if I go too much longer today, it's gonna wreck it. So
Yep. And
yeah.
I want food. I'm gonna get food. And David said, "Don't mind me. I'm using image share to with photos of my social security card." Yeah. I mean, yeah. There's a reason why on the public server I have it set at like 2 minutes to auto delete, because it's like if someone uploads something they shouldn't, it doesn't stay on the server for very long. And also, I don't know how to get to that, even if they did, but I'm sure I could figure out a way, which is why it auto deletes.
I'm just picturing Corbin's mantra of I want as little personal information as possible. I'm picturing him going on a date, and it's like, don't tell me your name. I don't want to know.
Yes. Come up with the fake
which
name.
Conveys a completely different message than intended. But it would be excellent if you then hand over like the privacy policy saying, I want no personal data. No one can take it from me. Right. No one will find out anything about you through me. I swear.
Yeah. Yeah. me going on my spiel about how I care about security while I run a web service where you upload images over unencrypted HTTP.
Yeah.
But it's fine. Its intended purpose is for Animal Crossing screenshots, so it's fine.
Yes.
Don't give
Yes.
me your social security card, please.
Oh boy. All right. So yeah, and it's funny because we said this was before the show. We said this was going to be a short one. Look at us lying to ourselves each and every time.
Yeah.
All right, but with that, I think it is a good time to wrap it up. Corbin, is there anything else you'd like to pitch, plug, or push?
No.
Excellent. Well, I will be back around this weekend for some game streams. Overwatch, Marvel Rivals, who knows, maybe something else here and there. And of course, we will be back next weekend next Wednesday for another RambleCast. In the meantime, if you would like to support the channel, there are links down below to Cash App, Streamlabs, and Patreon. And of course, huge thanks to supporters of the channel: Diablo, David, Austin, Carson, and Curvy Mermaid. Y'all are awesome. And I think that covers everything I was gonna say. So with that, I hope you all have an excellent rest of your week, and a good weekend. And for the love of all that is holy, limit the political news that you read. Don't stop reading, don't stop listening, just keep it to amounts that you can stomach before it turns your brain sour.
Yep, I have several times in the past month. It's just like, I'm not going to look at this for like a day. I think I need a day. I'm going to tune out. The horrors will happen whether or not I'm paying full attention all day long. So
yeah,
sometimes you just need to tune out for a little bit and recover, and then re-enter hell when you're ready.
Yeah, it's not that I overconsume it anyway, but I will say having the power outages that have occurred recently, there's something slightly nice about not getting a notification on my phone about the next terrible thing that happens. Like, a couple hours a day where that just isn't happening. It's nice. Anyway, with that, I hope you all have an excellent week. And, yeah. Good night, everybody.
Bye.
And, oops, I forgot to set up the outro card. So now, good night, everybody.